My name is Sir David Carter. I'm the National Schools Commissioner and I'm here in Nottingham today to do a presentation to the Kyra Teaching School Alliance. So today's event here at the National College for the Kyra Teaching School Alliance is a really important part of their collaborative principles, I think, because it brings people together out of their schools to talk about the commonality of their strategic approach, the things that are working, the goals and the aspirations that they have. But it enables them to challenge each other as well and to challenge their thinking. And there is a danger sometimes that when you're working so fast and so frantically in a school, you sometimes forget about what the DNA of the collaboration is. Days like today, and we've seen it in the workshops, we've seen it in the discussions, is about thinking about, is this strategy working for my school? How do I feed into it? How do I make this Teaching School Alliance be the best it can be for my children? So one of the key questions I get asked a lot in my role is from head teachers of schools and leaders and governors about forming or joining a multi-academy trust. And that is the right question. They should be having exactly those conversations now. It's a really important part of the future of their school, of their community, to have the dialogue about what they think will be the right solution for them. As I said when I was doing my presentation, you start from the needs of your community and your children, and you make sure that the multi-academy trust that you're setting up or the one that you're joining is going to be right for the children in your school, because the parents of your school have got to be able to ask this question, and you have to have an answer, which is this: is my child better off being educated in your MAT than where they were being educated before? And if you can't talk about that in terms of improving standards, in terms of challenging staff, developing staff, helping them to be the best they can be as leaders and as teachers, then the multi-academy trust is built on too shallow a foundation. So I think the learning that we have in the system at the moment about what makes a good multi-academy trust is becoming deeper and deeper. And I look for three things. I look for leadership. I think there has to be somebody who is charged with raising standards, who's accountable to the Regional Schools Commissioner for the standards in the multi-academy trust. But it's not just leadership at that level, it's that person's ability to build a leadership culture across the organisation. My second priority is around governance. Really strong, accountable, robust governance, but understands the vision and understands how to hold the leadership teams of the schools and of the trust to account. And governance is a really key part of that. And the third one, I think, is this balance between weighing the pig and fattening the pig. So of course I'd expect trusts to have really good data systems to understand how their schools are performing, how their individual teachers are performing with children, but there's a so what question. So if the data says actually we have a challenge with white working class boys in year 8, then actually what's the trust strategy? How are they going to respond to that? How are they going to challenge their schools and their leaders to really focus upon that issue? I think when MATs get the leadership, the governance and the school-to-school support right, I see them flourishing. So I think the question of MAT collaboration is really important, and I talk a lot about MATs being very collaborative within themselves, but they need to be collaborative with each other as well. Not just because of the learning, but actually because that way around the multi-academy trusts together can take responsibility for all of the children in their neighbourhood and their community. How you do it, I think there's a variety of ways. I think part of the glue is teaching school alliances. I've always said that I think that MAT has to have access to more than one teaching school alliance, who also have access to different MATs, so that you have that sharing of practice beyond the immediate organisational structure. I think that's part of it. I'm about to publish a good practice guide to multi-academy trusts, which is based upon what I see some of the best practice, what RSCs are looking for, and some case studies. So I think there's a role that we can play in the centre to tell people about good practice. But I think the third thing is about that inter-MAT collaboration, when they peer review each other, when they visit each other's trusts, when they look at the strategies for raising standards, how they build capacity, and maybe in the future actually coming together where more established and experienced MATs mentor a new MAT for the first 2 or 3 years to help them build capacity. I think that's very much part of my thinking as National Schools Commissioner going forward for the next 2 or 3 years. In terms of the maintained sector, I get asked the question a lot about where do I feel they fit. And they absolutely fit, there's no question about that. And good and outstanding maintained schools have a massive role to play in the system. I would like to persuade them to become sponsors. I want to persuade them to set up MATs. I want them to be part of the system capacity. But I understand and recognise that people have earned the right to have that time, to have that dialogue. But I think if being good and outstanding means that we close our doors and we're inward facing and we don't help the school down the road, then I do have a difficulty with that, because I think we're going to have a challenge in terms of how we raise standards in our education system if we don't have every school recognising that they give and receive support. Where maintained schools are requiring improvement or in serious weaknesses or in special measures or their standards are poor, then the academised solution and joining a multi-academy trust has to happen quickly, because fundamentally, while we have the debate, children in schools are getting an education that's substandard, and we've got to challenge that every day.